Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Well folks, it's finally time to talk about a period of bleakness. A period of twisted humanoid aberrations and the decay of human morality. This is also known as the Dark Age of comics. There are a number of factors that contributed to the Dark Age, though most people attribute it to Watchmen and The Dark Knight Returns. Suddenly, comic books were in the public eye, and seeing quote-unquote realism in its stories, with ambiguous morality and having real-world issues present in stories, was suddenly the hot topic. In reality, a lot of real-world issues have been creeping into comics since the 60s, it's just no one really paid too much attention to it until those two stories. They were so radically different from what had been on the market before that it changed the industry. The problem is that people didn't quite understand why they changed the industry. The assumption was that because the stories were dark, that must have been why they were so successful. The truth was that they were just complex stories, and in Watchmen's case, everything was so well developed, foreshadowed, and had such complex characterization and moral themes that it was a work of genius. But then again, like Hollywood, whenever something is successful, the comic industry oversimplified things and decided that the reason was because of the dark storylines. Suddenly, characters had to be grim and gritty, with melodramatic narration and looser ethics when it came to crime fighting. And of course, the artwork reflected this gritty style, assisted by our old pal, Rob Liefeld. There are several characteristics of the Dark Age of comics, but for today's subject, we're going to talk about the artwork. People were beginning to pick up comics not because of interesting storylines or characters, but because of the art. Liefeld and other artists had an art style that was so different from traditional sequential artwork that it was considered new and edgy. And in the early 1990s, the artists were pissed. Dissatisfaction with Marvel's payment policies and ownership rights of characters caused a group of artists, including Rob Liefeld, Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, and others, to band together, leave the company, and start their own, Image Comics. The focus was more on artwork instead of writing, and while sales were initially strong, over the years, continued delays on books and continually crappy art and writing caused people to suddenly realize what the hell it was they were paying for, and attitudes shifted away. By the late 1990s, most of the grim and gritty style of heroics were tossed aside in favor of more traditional heroes, and since then Image has changed its ways. After all, as Superman once put it, "These no-nonsense solutions of yours just don't hold water in a world of jet-powered apes and time travel." Today's subject was Image's first book off the press, and ironically, the first book I ever did a text review of back in 2007. As such, let's dig into Youngblood number 1. Let's forgive for a second that the anatomy of these guys is suspect. Let's forgive that this is a dime-a-dozen group shot with everyone clumped together. Let's forgive the fact that we can't see their eyes on any of them, hence why I coined the term Youngblood's disease. Let's forgive all of that. But now let's get into the coloring. This is ridiculous! I can barely tell where one hero begins and another ends. You look at teams like the Justice League or the Titans, and each hero has a unique look and usually a colorful characteristic that makes them distinct. With this cover, they're all blending together, but then again, it's not like we'll see them as that distinct anyway. Right before the first page, there's a cardboard profile box featuring the only female hero of the Youngblood home team, Vogue. Here it is revealed that underneath her patriotic and independent skin beats the heart of a Russian defector. Because, you know, when I think patriotic, I think of purple and white bodysuit, clown face makeup, and huge shoulder pads too. The first page opens up, according to the comic, in Washington, D.C. at 12:17 p.m. A man and woman are out shopping. We get a smattering of tiny bits of exposition as we learn the man is named Jeff and that his date Shelley wouldn't believe the reports we have to fill out. Yeah, those TPS reports are a bitch. And as you can see here, just like on the cover, Jeff has no eyes. Look out, Daredevil! There's a new blind superhero on the block! A thief runs past several mall walkers down the escalators, and Jeff leaps down to apprehend him. His hips are pushed out at odd angles while he leaps from an implausible side angle, only for the next panel to see him tackling the thief from a straight angle at the thief's back. Physics! Jeff berates the thief with this splendid dialogue. "'Tis the season for giving, not stealing." Dude, it's July! A narration box reveals that a good hero can never let a crime go unpunished. Okay, then who do I have to punish for this comic? We cut to an assassin lining up a rather bizarre-looking gun that looks more like it's designed for caulking than long-distance shots. A voice warns Jeff of the danger, and I'm sure it was meant to come from Shelley, even though the dialogue balloon seems to indicate that it came from the assassin himself. Jeff's body now looks like it's ballooned out so he can be an extra in Weird Al's Fat music video. He grabs a pen from his pocket and tosses it at the assassin. This somehow hits the assassin back with enough force to knock him off of a ledge. Physics! A bunch of onlookers reveal that our friend Jeff here is Shaft.
Shut your mouth.
I'm just talking about Shaft.
Then we can dig it.
Jeff begins to search the body. And by search, I mean he holds out his hand towards the body and says, "No ID, no pulse, no answers, no editor." From what I've read, Youngblood came about because Liefeld had been interested in doing a Teen Titans book for DC, and that Shaft here was supposed to be Roy Harper. As such, it's quite a shock to learn that Roy can search bodies just by looking at them. Shaft gets a call from HQ and apologizes to Shelley as he runs off. Shelley looks dreamily at her boyfriend and says, "Go nail him!" And if that means hammering nails into our skulls with the artwork, trust me, he's already done that. We cut to Baltimore, Maryland, 12:32 p.m.
My name's Friday. I carry a badge.
Here we meet Bedrock, later Badrock because of legal issues. The Grey Mama's boy who's eating lunch as he gets the call to come into the HQ as well. He even asks to be excused as the mother says how proud she is of him. And by the perpetual smile on her face, I'd think the Stepford Wives had been made into a comic book if not for the fact that even though it's the 90s, she has a head of 80s hair. We then cut to Arlington, Virginia, underground, 12:44 p.m. And I start to wonder what the hell's taken HQ so long as they appear to be calling their agents in 10-minute intervals. Anyway, in underground, we meet the next Youngblood member, Diehard, with a vengeance! Okay, it's just Diehard, but seriously, did Rob Liefeld even think these names as he was planning them? Although I do admit, Bruce Willis coming in and smacking these dorks around would have elevated the comic in my eyes. So what does this mysterious eyeless character laying on a multicolored slab have to say? "I am needed. This time I must make better use of my freedom. With a vengeance!" Okay, I'll stop now. Cut to almost half an hour later in the same location, only above ground now, where the buzz-cut Youngblood member Chapel is in bed with a naked woman as he gets his own call from HQ. He tells her to go and that she should leave her number. We then see Chapel in his iconic costume, even though it's only like 2 seconds later. The outfit consists of a leather jacket, red pants, skull face paint, and a gun right out of Men in Black. His inner monologue gives us this insightful wisdom. "You gotta give 'em hope. As Shaft would say, it's good PR." Dude, there is no PR firm in the world that could make that outfit look impressive or manly. Cut to 5 hours later as we see Vogue hopping around rooftops of Washington, D.C., revealing that she knows she got the call a few hours ago. "Shaft's probably pacing the halls by now. They think I'm at their beck and call. Let 'em wait!" Remember, kids, she's patriotic. We finally cut to what I can only presume is HQ, since there isn't any establishing caption to reveal this, which is weird considering every other place we've been to gave us one. Shaft comes in and we see him walking up to a huge-ass computer console where a normal-looking woman and a person with flaming green hair named Photon are. Shaft suddenly acts like a complete asshole as he says for no particular reason, "Oh, so we get the pleasure of your company tonight, Photon?" I'd question the relevance of that panel, but then again, it's not like any of these panels have been all that essential to this comic. The rest of the Youngblood team shows up and Shaft berates Vogue for being late. Before they can get in a good little dialogue about what exactly our fearless team leader will do if she shows up late again, the woman at the control chair reveals that there's a request for assistance coming in. Wait a second, what the heck was it that required Youngblood's presence 5 hours ago that they were called in for? Shaft asks what the situation is, and the woman reports that one of Youngblood's transport vehicles is under attack. She says it's strong arm engage! The 4! Actually that's only 2, and why the need for 3 exclamation points? While Vogue tries to cover up that bit of idiotic dialogue by asking, "Didn't we put 2 of them away?" Diehard and Chapel say that Strong Arm and Gage are attempting to make an escape attempt. So Shaft orders, Art attack! Take cover! The artwork's coming right for us! Cut to some random street in what I can only presume is Washington, D.C., since again, the establishing captions have abandoned us. We do get captions of a few bits of dialogue, albeit they're all colored white, so we have no idea who's saying it unless they say the other person's name. "Let's make this one quick, team. The 4 have never really been that tough. I want Strong Arm this time. He's all yours, Diehard." So, is it possible to live hard? Strongarm, like our old pal Mech Max from Dooms 4, has no visible joints to speak of for his arms, making him look like a cheap action figure. Gage is, well, just a guy with guns. Strongarm rips off the doors of the truck, revealing Deadlock and Starbright, and I have to say, they actually have semi-decent outfits, albeit Deadlock seems to have an inexplicable ponytail coming out of the back of his mask that's suffering from Dilbert's tie syndrome by defying gravity. Of course, this brings up the question of why the heck these two are even still in costumes if they were in custody. Starbright asks if there's any sign of Youngblood, to which Deadlock replies, the mere mention of that name boils my blood. Oh no, my blood! Help me, my friends! I'm vaguely Russian and my blood is boiling! Starbright tells him to keep it in check. Keep what in check? And that their plan depends on it. Gage gasps and calls out, 4 o'clock! 4 o'clock! They're here! They're here! They're here! Everybody hide so we can yell surprise! 3 arrows hit the ground. Okay, Shaft can kill a guy standing 100 feet away with a pen using his free hand, but he can't hit a couple of guys with a bow and arrow? Okay, admittedly his bow doesn't have any string, as indicated by the cover in a page that's coming up, but still. And here's the moment you've all been waiting for, folks. Diehard flies down and smacks Strongarm in the face with his crotch. I'm sure this wasn't what was supposed to be conveyed, but that's what we get, what with the bulging lines, the blood trail, and Diehard body's foreshortening. Diehard Cock proclaims, "This makes us even." And suddenly I understand fully what he did with his freedom the last time. And I also realize why they don't want any eyes if they're seeing stuff like that. Die-Hard-On punches Strongarm, this time with his fist, while shouting, "I've been waiting for this day, and this time you won't be as lucky." I don't think any of us want to be that lucky. And finally, we cut to a 2-page spread of the other members of Youngblood rushing out at the fore. Oh, and check out the cops in the lower left corner who have oversized legs and arms that for some reason are extended out away from them like stiff boards. Perhaps they're imitating what one of Liefeld's men would look like if they had muscles like that in real life. Whew, that issue lasted forever, didn't it? Well, at least it's over and... Oh. I forgot. Yes, folks, in a rather bizarre bit of page construction, what we saw on the cover was actually the home team of Youngblood. And now, we have to flip the comic over and read it from the start so we can get another exciting tale. Yippee! Okay, in theory, this is a neat idea. 2 teams that alternate whenever there are missions on the home front or missions that take you away from the immediate area. The problem is that this can also be a radically stupid idea. In the hands of a good writer, having a huge team on a book can be great. Like the current JSA run, there are 25 team members, and single issues can spotlight individual heroes, or they can get some nice character moments and fight scenes, since we know how unique each one is. But Youngblood gives us 12 characters, but not all in the same story. Half the book is for one group, and half is for the other. It's a terrible idea to put both stories in the same book. It's possible to have 2 different teams with similar names running at the same time, but with Youngblood, the 2 teams mean that the missions are going to be really short and, again, little time for characterization. Backup features work because they're short supplements, a small story with a large story, but these are both of equal size and we didn't get any resolution on the home team of Youngblood. The story just stopped. It's especially bad to do this for a first issue. First issues are supposed to get the reader acclimated to these characters and their situations, give us some idea of what their deal is and why we should like them. But this book just had the characters thrust into one action situation to the next without any real chance for substance. Are the Youngblood a government organization? Are they the world's only superhero? Just tell us! Anyway, with all that in mind, let's dig into Youngblood number 1. Again. The cover on the back is a little better off than the home teams, with a bit more uniqueness to the characters and even some symbols for them. The colors don't seem as blended. Inside, we have yet another cardboard profile box, this one for the home team's leader, Shaft. Apparently, he's an experienced FBI agent who was chosen to replace an unseen character named Battlestone as leader of Youngblood. Say, Rob, why not have an origin story for your entirely new universe and characters, eh? No? Fine. It says that his weapon of choice is a specially crafted bow and arrow, which makes me think it must be special if it doesn't have a string. We begin with 6 television screens displaying a news report. I'm reluctant to call it talking heads though, since every time a person is on the screen, they look like they're sleeping. Yes, not only do they have their eyes tightly shut, but their mouths are clamped firmly down, even though there are both speech bubbles and caption boxes that indicate that people should be talking. The speech bubble for the news announcer doesn't even have an arrow connecting it to him. For all we know, they're just putting Bob Squarebody there on the screen while he took some NyQuil and someone else is trying to make it look like they're actually talking. Superhero books can be great inspirations. Like right now, this is inspiring me to sleep too. Apparently the situation as they describe it is how a radical leader of a terrorist group named Saddam Hussein, that's Hassan Hussein, who is also sleeping by the way, has taken control of several Israeli territories. The president is sending in a specialized task force to deal with it. We switch to a live feed from a reporter on the field, and despite the fact that his mouth is actually open, this reporter's eyes are also just as shut as the others, indicating he must be unconscious too. Let's focus on one of these Youngblood dorks. Combat. Look at this guy, a giant tuning fork on his head, and a helmet that I'm sure in no way is meant to resemble Magneto's from the X-Men. And he's also got this huge pink gun that was probably supposed to look badass, but instead makes him look like he's wielding a giant frosting dispenser. To make matters worse, while the other members of Youngblood are leaping down from helicopters in relatively the same direction, Pinky the gold salad fork here is dropping down, facing the wrong way, plus scrunching his body as if he were sitting on a toilet. Physics! On the next page, Combat's gun is like 3 times smaller than it was in the previous one. Continuity? What's that? He announces shocked that there were more than what the briefing said there would be. Cougar, who is of course not like Wolverine at all, responds thusly. Got more toy soldiers to play with. War's just a game to you? Yep, otherwise this wouldn't be fun, Coog. I gotta admit, this gets me pumped! And suddenly we're in a Jane Fonda video. Well, that actually would explain why all of these losers are so muscle-bound. The de facto team leader, Sentinel, who is obviously not Iron Man, explains that this is only the first wave and that it's revealed that Combat wasn't paying attention during the briefing. Oh, and his gun is turned into another size, this time about 2/3 of the original size. Let's see. He doesn't pay attention to briefings, he has a size-changing gun, he's got to be uncomfortable to be within an elevator due to his size, and he treats war like a game. The next generation of heroes, ladies and gentlemen! Seriously, who the hell would find this compelling? Dude, I got like 3 copies of Youngblood #1, man! And like 4 copies of Youngblood #0! That's like a #1 issue! Only it's a 0! That means it's like 0 times cooler! Wait. We catch up with the other members of the away team. Sci-Fire just kind of floats on the air alongside Riptide, who is herself riding on a wave of water. He cleverly quips, I should have bought this land. I've always wanted beachfront property, babe. Riptide, echoing the sentiments of every human being on the planet, responds, Shut up, Sci-Fire! Following along is the other team strongman, Brahma, and he, Oh my god! Get away from his mouth! It's a black hole! He complains, These soldiers are worse than flies. You get a lot of flies in your HQ, or are you actually a cow? They close in on their target, a small building without much security, to help secure Saddam, or Hassan's location. The group leaps in close to the building, only to be stopped by an energy field. Sci-Fire is fine, however, and he creepily exclaims that he could take out Hassan from the States. The energy field doesn't affect him, and he looks up at the camera, stating actually quite frighteningly with his lack of eyes that he wanted to do this personally. Just give me a second to figure out where you actually are. Meanwhile, Combat and Cougar have suddenly engaged with other high-tech robots and, you know what? I don't care about any of this, so let's skip to the end. We cut back to Sci-Fire and Hussein, who's pleading for his life. To make Sci-Fire even more unpleasant, he proclaims, I actually admire what you've done here in this backwards country. It's just that mine pays me more. The next generation of heroes! Sci-Fire gives a little psychic attack to Hussein's brain, and much to the surprise of every reader of the book, we get a close-up shot of Hussein's eye. Wow, it actually exists! But Hussein holds his head in pain while Sci-Fire says that he does this kind of stuff for free. Then why was he talking about how he's paid better in the USA? Allowing Hussein's head to blow up off-panel. Charming. Combat and Cougar enter, saying with rather mild annoyance, He did it again! The other members of Youngblood wake up and also express their eye-rolling disappointment over the fact that he killed him. Brahma just stares at the body as if Gary Coleman had slapped him in the face, while Riptide sums it up with an irritated, "Oh, way to go! Brilliant!" with about the same amount of enthusiasm as you would when you forgot to put gas in the car. Iron Man, or Sentinel, says it's time to leave and they should call the cleanup crew. And our comic ends with a shot of US Today saying that Hussein's terror ended in suicide. The newsprint says that he apparently unpinned a grenade in his mouth and that a suicide note was found nearby. Our heroes, ladies and gentlemen, they're murderers, liars, and they support other killers. Isn't it just the stuff of legends? This comic sucks. The art is bad, the writing is bad, it's just bad all around.
Bad rock stars drinking stage. Road stop purple heroin. Chapel gives people AIDS. Youngblood. Oh, we, oh, we, oh, we, oh. Youngblood. Oh, we, oh, we, oh, we, oh. Youngblood.
Bowstring? Cha! Who needs a bowstring anyway? Those are for losers who are not hardcore enough. Don't even think about having heroic logos on your chest or anything. What we want is shoulder pads. Huge shoulder pads, man! Those are so much more boss than a stupid symbol. Hey, I'm 90s Kid, and what you see is what you get.